Imagine this. You've given 17 years of your life to a company. You built their systems, trained their staff, worked weekends without a single complaint. Then one Monday morning, your boss calls you in, smirks, and says, "Your position's eliminated. Clean out your desk." What would you do? For Jake Wilson, that was the moment everything changed. And his revenge? Oh, it was legendary. If you've ever been betrayed, underestimated, or kicked to the curb by someone who thought they could get away with it, this story's for you. Hit that like button, smash subscribe, and buckle up for a revenge tale so satisfying, you'll be cheering by the end. Let's dive in. Jake Wilson was 54 years old, a senior systems analyst at Meridian Technologies in Columbus, Ohio. For 17 years, he'd been the quiet backbone of their IT department. Picture a guy who shows up early, coffee in hand, family photo on his desk, and a small cactus that somehow survived under those harsh fluorescent lights. Jake wasn't flashy. He didn't chase promotions or beg for praise. He just did his job really well. From the days of screeching dial-up modems to seamless cloud migrations, Jake had seen it all. He'd trained every new coder, recovered every crashed server, and worked through countless holidays while his family waited at home. His wife Andrea used to tease him, saying, "Those servers are your second family, aren't they?" She wasn't wrong. Jake knew every system inside out, the custom software he'd written, the backdoor fixes for problems no one else could solve, the admin credentials buried so deep only he could find them. Meridian had grown from a 2-floor startup to a 12-story corporate giant, and Jake had been there for every step, turning down better offers from competitors, because loyalty meant something to him. But loyalty, it turns out, wasn't a two-way street. 5 years ago, Daniel, a young MBA type, became Jake's boss. Daniel didn't see people, he saw IT resources. He threw around buzzwords like digital transformation and future-proofing. But to Jake, they all meant one thing: do more with less. At first, Jake tried to help Daniel understand the systems, explaining the complex architecture built over decades. But Daniel's eyes would glaze over, looking past Jake like he was some relic from the dial-up era. Then came Jason Phillips, a slick consultant with a Stanford degree and an expensive suit. 6 months ago, he started showing up, huddling with Daniel in conference rooms, their voices dropping whenever Jake passed by. Around the same time, Jake noticed small changes. His admin permissions were quietly tweaked. His emails about system upgrades stopped coming, and projects he'd always led were handed to younger coders he'd trained himself. One night, sitting on his porch with Andrea, Jake stared into his beer, feeling the weight of it all. "You seem distracted," Andrea said softly. "Everything okay at work?" Jake forced a nod. "Just changes. Nothing new." But deep down, he knew something was wrong. He'd found a company memo about a modernization initiative that didn't even mention his role. Worse, during a routine security scan, one of those tasks no one else bothered with anymore, he spotted strange payments to a vendor called Apex Solutions Group. Small at first, but growing. A quick search showed Apex was barely a year old, registered to a UPS store. Jake didn't say a word. He just documented it, copied the records, and kept watching. Sometimes, the quiet guy in the corner sees everything because everyone assumes he sees nothing. That Monday morning, Jake walked into Daniel's office, expecting a routine meeting. Instead, Vanessa from HR was there, her face blank. Daniel didn't even look up from his desk. "Jake, after 17 years, we're eliminating your position," he said flatly. "Clean out your desk by end of day." The words hit like a punch to the gut. Jake's chest tightened, his ears rang, but his face stayed calm. "I understand," he said, nodding once. He walked out, past the rows of cubicles where younger coders, kids he'd mentored, glanced at him, then quickly looked away. News travels fast. At his desk, Jake packed slowly. The family photo, the coffee mug his son made in high school, that stubborn little cactus. Bethany from marketing stopped by, her voice trembling. "Jake, this is ridiculous. You practically built this place." Jake shrugged, his voice low. Companies change direction. But inside, a cold resolve was forming. It wasn't fine, not by a long shot. As he left, Daniel watched from his office door. No goodbye, no handshake, just a cold stare to make sure Jake was gone. In his car, Jake sat for a moment, staring at the 12-story building where he'd spent half his life. His security badge, renewed 16 times, lay on the passenger seat. He started the engine and drove home, a faint smile tugging at his lips. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, Jake sat in his home office, coffee untouched, staring at a flash drive from his desk drawer. Years ago, during a company scandal, the legal team had asked him to set up audit protocols to track unauthorized access. They'd also approved off-site backups, then promptly forgot about them. That flash drive held everything: internal emails, meeting minutes, financial records most employees would never see. Jake plugged it in. Within hours, he'd uncovered a trail of payments to Apex Solutions Group, $1.8 million, over 18 months, approved by the CFO, Brian Wilcox. The amounts were inflated, tacked onto legitimate software licenses, small enough to slip past auditors but big enough to add up. Then came the kicker. Apex was owned by Thomas Wilcox, Brian's brother-in-law. Jake leaned back, his pulse steady but his mind racing. For 17 years, he'd fixed problems, protected data, been the reliable guy who never made waves, and they'd discarded him to cover their tracks. His phone buzzed. A text from Steven, a junior analyst he'd mentored. "Sorry about yesterday. Total BS. Phillips is already in your office." Jake didn't reply. The pieces were falling into place. He drafted an email to the board, then stopped. Too direct. Too easy to dismiss as a bitter ex-employee. He needed precision, leverage, a plan they couldn't ignore. Wednesday morning, Jake parked across from Meridian's headquarters, laptop open. At 9:15 a.m., he sent an email to Daniel from an untracked internal account he'd set up years ago for security testing. Subject: financial irregularities, urgent review needed. It outlined the Apex payments, just enough to rattle Daniel, without revealing everything. By 9:45, Daniel called, leaving a tense voicemail. "Jake, we need to talk. Call me back." Jake didn't. At 10:30, Vanessa emailed, warning him about violating his separation agreement. Jake hadn't signed one. By noon, he was at his bank, pulling another backup from his safe deposit box. It showed Brian had requested expanded access to financial systems 18 months ago, right when Apex payments began. At 3 p.m., Brian himself called. "Jake, let's clear up this misunderstanding," he said, his voice too smooth. "The board doesn't need to hear about this." Jake's reply was ice cold. "I think they'd be very interested in Apex and your brother-in-law." Brian's sharp inhale was all Jake needed to hear. "You're making a mistake," Brian warned. "Goodbye, Brian," Jake said, hanging up. Minutes later, Vanessa emailed again, offering a doubled severance package on condition of silence. They were panicking good. Thursday night, Jake dug deeper. The Apex scheme wasn't Brian's first. 3 years ago, another fake vendor, Lakeside Business Solutions, owned by Brian's wife, had siphoned off millions in consulting fees. Daniel had facilitated it, getting budget increases in return. Even Jason Phillips was in on it, hired to push Jake out before he could notice. Over 3 years, they'd stolen $4.3 million. Jake compiled everything: spreadsheets, emails, business registrations. But instead of emailing the board, he contacted Robert Chen, a semi-retired board member who'd always respected him. They met in a park, where Jake handed over a sealed envelope and flash drive. "I'm not looking for my job back," Jake said. "I just want the right people to know." Robert nodded. "If this checks out, heads will roll." That night, Jake scheduled one final email to every board member. "Set to deliver at 8 a.m. Friday, right?" Before their emergency finance meeting. Attached was his full report. Friday morning. Jake sat on his porch, coffee in hand, as his email hit the board's inboxes. By 8:17, his phone was buzzing with unknown numbers, board assistants probably. He let them go to voicemail. At 9:32, Steven texted, "Police are here." Wilcox and Daniel being questioned. Phillips looked sick. "What did you do?" At 10 a.m., Meridian's general counsel called, begging Jake to come in. "Everything I know is in that report," he said calmly, "and it's backed up. If anything happens to me, copies go to the SEC, IRS, and the press." Silence. Then, "The board's taking this seriously. Executives are on leave." Jake hung up, a weight lifting from his chest. By noon, news sites were buzzing. Meridian executives under investigation. Robert called at 2 p.m. Brian confessed, trying to blame Daniel. Daniel's denying it. Phillips claims he's innocent. The board's not buying it. Forensic accountants say $5.2 million was stolen. "You were right." Jake exhaled, the cold resolve melting into quiet triumph. They'd underestimated him, and they'd paid for it. Justice doesn't always come with a bang. Sometimes it's quiet, precise, like a system running perfectly after years of neglect. Jake didn't just get revenge, he exposed a truth no one else saw. Karma, it turns out, has a way of finding those who think they're untouchable. Wasn't that wild? If Jake's story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell us in the comments. What's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? Don't forget to subscribe for more epic stories like this. And hit the bell so you never miss a video. See you next time.